we need to kind of discuss the elephant in the room.
That's true.
And if you see it written on a piece of paper and you don't know you're probably going to pronounce or try to pronounce it probably incorrectly.
Oh, 95% of the time. Hi, everyone. I'm Krachel Fulmer.
And I'm Natalia Bonner, and welcome back to episode 2
of the Unalike podcast. Sweet. That is the word that Ty Birmingham said over and over and over last month when he received a gift from all of the neighborhood boys.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, KSL affiliate TV in Salt Lake City did a story about this group of teens who had just graduated. And we've talked a lot about, well, we haven't talked a lot, but not you and I, but we have talked a lot about how graduation was really different this year for graduates.
It really was.
We did lots of things like people who were older posted their senior photos kind of as a tribute to the seniors who were having graduations in a different manner. And then we all talked about graduation and how graduation looks so different. And where I live, they ended up doing it in the high school parking lot. They put a stage up. Everybody came and parked in their cars.
That's awesome.
And I didn't go, but I think the cars, I guess your cars could be close. But when it was your graduate's turn, they would walk up across the stage, and it was outdoors, and everyone on stage was 6 feet apart. But they all honked their horns.
Oh, that's
instead
cool.
of clapping. So
yeah, really cool. Down here, or where I live here in the desert, we didn't have that, but I know a lot of the schools kind of did like walk through graduation, I think is what they called it, where just one student at a time would walk through and they broadcast it over YouTube or something. So I think that was a common thing down here. But anyways, what happened up there?
Yeah, so in the city of Kaysville, which is in northern Utah, the NBC affiliate there, which is KSL, did a story about a young man who's named Ty Birmingham. And Ty was turning 25 years old, actually, I think right back around the 4th of July. So ahead of time, all of the graduating seniors in the neighborhood, they said more than a dozen of them decided that they wanted to pool their money together and buy Ty, the neighborhood boy. So he's not a boy, he's a man, but he has some special needs, and everyone knows him. They said kind of his trademark is his scooter. So everywhere he goes, he rides a scooter around the neighborhood. They talk about how he takes his scooter to the grocery store. And so these kids, these 18-year-olds, decided they wanted to pool their money together. They noticed that Ty's scooter was starting to look a little beat up, and they wanted to buy him a new one.
That's awesome.
Well, it gets better because they had more money than they expected. They bought him an electric scooter.
Oh, cool.
So he's not having to use so much footwork, so much of his own energy to get around town. He now has an electric scooter. So in this video that the news affiliate put together, all of these boys are gathered around. They're actually, one of the boys is holding his hands up over Ty's eyes and walk him out to the street, and then they pull his hands back. And I think Ty probably doesn't say a lot, but they said he just kept saying sweet over and over and over.
That's awesome. I love that a lot of people coming together can really create a big impact and change someone's life. It's awesome.
I think it was a great tribute to someone who lives in the neighborhood and somebody who had a need, and the kids were able to look beyond themselves, and they, on that day, became an example of being the good.
Yeah. They were the good you wish to see in the world.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, episode 2.
Here we are.
We're back.
We've had such a positive response from all of you over the past week, and we are just grateful.
Yes.
I have a favorite phrase, and it is obsessively grateful. The story behind it is that when you are going through a trial, there's a reason why that trial is happening, and you may not see it at the time, but we've all been there. We've all been able to get down the road and then look back and go, that is why that happened. Well, the point of being obsessively grateful is being obsessively grateful for our trials. Being able to, when you're in the thick of the ugliest thing going on in your life right now, being able to still find the good. And not just to say that you're grateful, but that you are obsessively grateful for that trial. And this is not a trial right now, but I just have to say that we are beyond grateful to each of you for the support that you have given us as we rolled out this podcast, and the feedback that we've had has been amazing. So thank you. We are so excited that you're here, and we're grateful that you're back and joining us again for week 2.
Yep. Welcome back. What's the good news?
Well, let's see. It's hot. Has been hot. We're into the peak of summer right now. It's way too hot to go outside and do yard work in the middle of the day. We're at the point of the summer, right, where you get up and you either go out super early and you do yard work in the morning hours, and we go back out in the evening. But anyway, we have found some comfort by working in our garage because it is shaded.
It's cooler.
We don't have air conditioning. We're not fancy, but it's shaded, and so we've been working in our garage. And I just have to give a huge shout out to my husband Dustin, who just has done a complete makeover on our garage and has helped me to go through everything out there and organize it and find a place for it and find a spot for it. We are anyway, just doing a major makeover, and it makes us so happy. Don't you agree that when you go through a room, kind of like when you give your pantry a makeover, or maybe a closet?
Oh, yeah.
It makes you feel a little
You feel like
lighter.
a new person.
Yeah.
Like I recently cleaned out my pantry, and the same, like you just feel better about life.
It makes you feel happy.
When you clean out. And I showed everybody my pantry for days because I was similar.
Imagine,
your garage, you're proud of it.
Think about those people who are OCD and have immaculate houses. Imagine how happy they must be all the time. If I feel this happy just from going through the garage, imagine what they must feel like.
I can't even.
Because I'm not one of them. We'll just be upfront about that.
All right, so I have a good story to tell you, and this is a personal experience, and I don't know that you've ever heard this story, so I'm going to share it here today, because this is probably one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me in my life.
Okay.
Okay, so
can't wait.
We had been on a family vacation, my husband and I and our 2 kids, and we're coming home from this vacation, and a lot of things were going on, There was actually some earthquakes and different things like that happened like the day before we were supposed to fly home. So I got up that morning and checked our flights, and I looked and I knew that our final flight was going to be canceled. I just knew it. And at this point it's like 3 a.m. and I'm saying to Brad, you know what? We're just going to the airport and we're just going to pretend as if we're making it home safe and sound, and we're not going to portray our anxieties about what we're expecting to happen this day onto our children, because I know that if I do that, it's going to be a nightmare for all of us if they know that I have anxiety about what's going to happen. So we make it through flight number 1. It's like a 4.5 hour flight, and get to our destination. And as soon as we get off the airplane, of course, if you've flown, you know this happens. You start getting all these text messages and messages because your phone's been off for 4.5 hours or whatever while you've been flying. So I get off and I start checking all these messages, and your flight's canceled, your flight's delayed, your flight's canceled, your flight's rescheduled, your flight's delayed. I had about 12 of these. So I can handle airports, and I feel pretty confident, going and talking to the travel or, everybody in the airport and getting a little assistance. So I walked right up to the counter, the first person to walk up there, and they said, if you want us to be honest, you're probably not going to make a flight today.
Oh.
And driving wise, we're probably about 6 hours away from our home. So we took a step back and thought, you know what, let's just take a deep breath and figure out what we're going to do. Let's go eat some food, and we'll just come back here and decide, are we going to try to rent a car and drive home or whatever? So we go eat some dinner, and we came back, and right as I walk up to the counter, I hear a man at the counter. So there wasn't a lot of people in the airport at this time, and he's like, well, is there a flight into this town? And it's the town where I live. And I'm just joking, and I'm completely not like a person that regularly goes up to strangers and talks to them. I'm very, very quiet and shy if you don't know me in public. It might come off as something else, but it's just that I'm very quiet in public.
Yeah.
So I see this man and hear this, and I said, hey, there's no flights there. I already checked. And he kind of looks at me and he's like, I guess we're driving. And I turn around to my 2 kids and my husband, and I say, we're driving. So this man, this stranger that we met in an airport, walked over and said, well, here's my wife and my daughter. Let's drive. So we walked. You're shocked that I would do this.
Separate.
So we walked down and got all of our bags from baggage claim. It was very smooth. Everyone in the airport was really helpful and helped us get our bags. And it was just a really uncomfortable situation, but everyone was so helpful. And then the man said to Brad, why do we need 2 cars? Let's just get a big one. So they walked out together and rented a big car and we drove home. It was the best.
In the same car.
In the same car together. He drove. We all just piled in together and we drove home and we made it in record time, following the speed limit. And it was awesome. And I just have to, it was the most positive thing that was so out of my control. Mm-hmm. It was so not me. It was so unpredicted. And that man and his family totally changed our lives because they were kind that day. So,
wow.
Just something.
Wow. So you made it home.
And maybe even playing off the story you told last week, I finally, for once, was willing to accept some help because I'm not the type of person that would usually get in a car with, someone that really was a stranger. We knew that we made some connections beforehand, so it was safe. We were all okay.
Yeah.
Not beforehand, but at the airport.
Well, and you met his wife, so you.
We met his wife and his daughter. We all rode together, and it was amazing, and it worked out, and we did it.
I've done that before.
Well, I'm not surprised.
It's been a long time, probably 20 years ago. I am trying to remember the circumstances, but I do know that the end result is my family was going to travel 2 or 3 states away to get to a relative's home. We were going to go up and spend the weekend there. For some, I don't know if I had to work or what, but we were going, or maybe, it would make most sense that probably on our way back, I would have to go to work. At that time, I was working in television. I worked the night shift. So probably and that's what was going to happen. We were going to leave my car at my place of employment so that, so that's what I think. I think we were going to leave it there, and that way, just when we came back from our trip, they could drop me off and I would have the car. Mm-hmm. Well, on the end of the trip, I was on my way to the office and my car broke down.
Oh.
And I was probably, 20 minutes from there.
Okay.
My office is by the airport, this is when I was in Salt Lake City. So I am not far from the Salt Lake City airport, working at a TV station, but my car has broke down 20 miles from there. Well,
back before Uber and all of technology.
Barely before, I barely had a cell phone and none of this smartphone stuff. Just, I could barely text and do 8 fingers at a time. So, when it quit working, I was in a gas station parking lot.
Oh, wow.
So I think I went inside and told them, and they told me I could leave it there. Well, I got that much figured out, but now I still had to figure out how to get down to my office where my family was going to pick me up. And so exact same, I'm at the counter, I don't know if I'm saying it out loud or honestly, maybe I just started going up to people in the parking lot. I don't know. But somehow I connected with a couple of businessmen who were on their way to the airport. And that's the key to this, is that because my office was close to the airport, these couple of gentlemen, they're dressed in suits. I felt like I don't know. That doesn't mean anything. But
we're not saying to go get in the car with strangers with these stories, just so you know.
They looked like they were nice. Anyway, so they said we're actually headed to the airport, and oh my gosh, I'm convincing them my office is right on the way. Please, I need a ride. Mm-hmm. And they did, and everything worked out, and it was great. It turned, so they're not from the Salt Lake area, but one of them had gone to school at the University of Utah, so he was familiar with the area, had not been back for 30 years. So, but anyway, yeah, I did that. I climbed into a car and they dropped me off right at my office, and
it's amazing.
It's okay.
If you find the good, if you look for the good, you will find the good in the world. But be careful. Don't
Yeah.
just get in the car with a stranger.
As I'm telling the story and I'm like saying they're dressed in suits, I think, how many men are in the news right now? Not
Yeah.
for good reasons. And they're all men who dress up and wear a suit to work every day. And,
Yeah.
and as I'm telling this, I'm thinking back, I'm like, oh, I really had no idea who I was talking to. Luckily,
No.
good guys.
This might be kind of a say what type of story, because that's a little bit,
Wrong
a little bit
segment.
maybe.
Wrong
But I do
segment.
have a funny,
Okay.
moving on, I have a funny say what that I would like to share today. Do you have any say whats that you want to share first?
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Okay, so I spent many years of my life working in the dental industry, so I kind of still am very intrigued by teeth. It's a weird thing, but I'm fascinated by them. So I just found this random statistic, or random fact maybe. I like random facts, just random knowledge. So I found this one that said that humans have actually been practicing dentistry since about 700 BC.
No.
So that probably makes dentistry one of the oldest careers
Really?
that we have. Crazy, huh? Right? Say what?
Well, I'm trying to think like in the Bible, because that's written a long time ago. They talk about, I feel like masons or bricklayers, or I don't know, you know, they construct houses, but or adobe huts or whatever it was back then, but they never talk about the dental work that they did.
They had teeth too.
Touche. Okay, here's a fun one. There are some people walking down a street on Long Island
Okay.
the other day, and they notice this piano that's probably been discarded. It's sitting on the side of the sidewalk, and all of a sudden a man wearing a motorcycle helmet comes up to the piano and begins to play it.
That's awesome.
Okay?
And it works?
So, oh, it's beautiful. Like, it sounds great. It's in tune. And he's a good piano player, right?
Okay.
So people pull out their cell phones. Okay? It's all over. You can Google this. It's on YouTube. But yeah. So he plays a whole little verse of a song. And then he turns and begins to talk to someone. I don't... So the story is he was on a motorcycle ride. He sees this discarded piano. He gets off. He starts to play it. It is no other than the piano man himself, Billy Joel.
Wow.
Yeah.
That he
So-
saw it and just stopped. And
So he stops. He gets out, literally begins to tickle the ivories. And so he turns to whoever he's with and he's like, it's a perfectly good piano. And he's saying, what a shame it is that it's been discarded. And that it should, at the very least, be donated to St. Vincent de Paul, the thrift store that's down the street. And so, you know,
that's amazing.
how
I love
awesome
it.
is that? That
The right place at the right time,
yeah,
kind of.
and of all people, the
Right.
piano man.
That's amazing. Okay, so one more
Okay.
random fact or random thing that I just thought I'd bring up. So, remember last week we talked about how I was growing roses
Yes,
and they're actually
yes.
working? Well, I
And
recently
you prune them without
and I
gloves.
prune them without gloves. So I recently found out, did you know this, that raspberries, apples, and peaches are the same family
No.
as roses. So maybe I should try some of those. If I can grow roses, can I?
Raspberries, apples,
And peaches all come from the same family as a rose. So
Well, you live where it's really warm.
yeah,
I'm-
I'm really serious. Like maybe I could grow.
I mean, rose bushes,
Peaches
not
or
rose,
raspberries.
raspberry bushes aren't very big. You could fit those in some of your beds.
Yeah. Maybe.
Okay, keep us posted. Let us know.
I might become a gardener.
There's still hope.
I've got years to practice.
Wow, that is random.
Yeah, I really liked that one.
You
So-
also said last week that growing up, your family was very big into gardening.
Mhm.
What were some of the things you planted in your garden?
I loved to grow sunflowers
Mhm.
and I loved growing pumpkins. Those were my very favorite things to grow. And actually growing, or as an adult, my son and I have grown sunflowers a few times. Last year we actually grew a sunflower that grew taller than our roof. It was
Wow.
amazing. We didn't even know what it was until about halfway through the summer. It was kind of an accident that we grew it, but we grew one that was taller than our house. We were pretty proud of
I
that
remember that you
sunflower.
had a plant that you named.
Yeah, it had a name. My sister told me that it was a weed, so we named the sunflower Whitney.
After her.
After her. So, there you go.
I remember, well, I think one of my favorite things out of the garden is zucchini. And that's because I have a really great zucchini recipe, zucchini bread. And so selfishly, I love that the neighbors all plant zucchini because they always have too much. And so they gift us with zucchini. But really, I have a great zucchini bread recipe. And man, like once that comes out of the oven, my family can polish off a whole loaf in an afternoon.
There's something about zucchini bread. And one more thing is while we're talking about gardening. So as a child, I ate a lot of squash and zucchini and all of that. And I thought they were the grossest things on the planet. Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting at the table for hours and hours on end because we had to eat all of our food. That was the rule. You couldn't get down until your dinner was gone and things like that. So as an adult, when I'm like, maybe I'll try these things, then I'm a little afraid. But I do have to tell you that I have been eating a lot of squash with just a little bit of butter and salt and pepper, and I can't believe how much I've changed.
Wow.
I really, really enjoy like a butternut squash.
I feel like I should write a letter to your parents and let them know
that I eat butternut
all
squash
paid
by
off.
choice.
Wow. Well, do you do spaghetti squash?
No, not as much.
One of my favorite things as an adult, we didn't do this as kids, but I heat up a spaghetti squash and then just put the spaghetti sauce right on top.
Oh, yeah.
So it's literally spaghetti.
Yeah.
But with a vegetable base instead of a pasta base.
Instead of a pasta would be
so
really good.
So my entire dinner, if I do that, and I'll eat half of just... I don't make the kids do it. They might think that's a little weird. So they still get their noodles, but my husband and I split the squash. So I eat half of a spaghetti squash in one setting.
Yeah, with some sauce.
And literally my only calories are that sauce. It's like I eat my entire dinner for 200 calories that day.
That's awesome.
So it's good. You'll have to try that.
We will definitely have to try that because we eat lots of spaghetti in this house.
What are some of those other vegetables that you eat now that were like completely off question as a kid? Yeah.
But I like to wrap it in bacon and grill it.
Oh.
I like to make it as unhealthy as possible, but I love
of course.
Asparagus now. Do you have any?
Yeah, I have a good one. Brussels sprouts.
I'm still struggling with those. I grew up eating them steamed, and I don't enjoy steamed vegetables.
They're not good steamed.
No.
I'm just going to say that now. They're soggy.
Yeah.
Okay. So the secret with Brussels sprouts is you have to bake them.
I believe that. They're still a little crunchy.
Yes. So I actually peel them. I cut the little base off, and I actually peel some of the leaves off.
Oh, I didn't even know you could do that.
And then I still put the whole head down on a tray, and I scatter some of my extra leaves, but I add a little bit of oil, some salt and pepper, and I bake it. Oh. And they come out, the crunchy ones are as crunchy as a potato chip. So it satisfies that desire for a crunch, but they are good, and they are not soggy.
I will definitely consider trying that.
You should consider. And then let me know how it goes.
Okay.
We're all waiting to hear.
I will definitely maybe try it before the next time. Don't hold me to it.
Okay. Okay.
So I have been working a lot lately. Last week we talked about my online class, the quilt that's actually behind us. And that was a class. It was fun. It's an online class that anybody can take. But now I like to do what I call a stitch along. So I share videos over several weeks and other quilters will stitch along. So I will show them step by step how to quilt something, and then they'll on their own time stitch out the same thing and then share it in my Facebook groups. So I've been working a lot this past week getting ready for my new stitch along that's called the 9 patch along, and it will actually start in September. But we've just, a lot of behind the scenes work goes into it to get it ready for everybody. So that's what I've been sewing.
So for these stitch alongs, how can I join?
So this 9-patch long that we're creating is actually free. So anybody that wants to can join. You obviously need to have some type of a machine that you can quilt on. If you're working on your domestic machine, then you do need to have like the ability to drop your feed dogs and a ruler foot. I do a lot of teaching with machine quilting rulers, which I'm just going to interject right here and say they're not the same rulers as like rotary, like rulers that you cut fabric with. You've used those because you've sewn a dress before. So you've seen those. These are a different type of rulers.
I have a picture of it. We talked about
we should
that
find that and share it because you had a really amazing braid in that picture too.
Oh, I did. My hair. Yeah.
So anyway, anybody can join these stitch-alongs that wants to. This particular one, like I said, is free if you have a long arm or a sit-down machine. And you can go to our website, peaceandquilt.com, to find out all the information. Or we also have a group on Facebook that anybody can join. It's called the 9-patch along. So that's what I've been working on, and it's really fun. I've found a lot of passion in machine quilting with rulers, you know, the precision you can get from it. And I've found that a lot of beginners and even a lot of really experienced quilters that have never used rulers before, by using rulers, they can get some really precise work, even on the first or second try, which machine quilting definitely has a learning curve. So it's a fun way to teach people how to get really great results pretty quickly. So that's what we're working on right now.
Awesome. So people can go there to her website for more information. We also want to give a big shout out to Natalia's company, Peace and Quilt, for being a sponsor of this podcast. Peace and Quilt is located online, peaceandquilt.com, and you can go there to get more information with all of your sewing needs, quilting needs. She sells accessories. She has created several rulers, but she has scissors and a lot of other little accessories that go along with quilting process. I know you've got some favorite threads that you sell, so we just want to give them a plug and say thank you for sponsoring this podcast. And if you need more help with sewing or quilting, be sure to check her out. She has many tutorials, classes where she can answer all of the questions you may have with your quilting needs.
Alrighty, so moving on.
Okay.
Every week we like to have an interview. I like interviews, inspiring. Last week you interviewed me, so I felt like it would only be fitting for me to interview you this week.
Okay.
So I'm going to paraphrase this or start out by saying Krachel has lived a lot of lives.
That's one way to put it.
But before we start that and we get into all the lives she's lived, or the amazing life she's lived, we need to kind of discuss the elephant in the room. Your name is not a typical name.
That's true.
And if you see it written on a piece of paper and you don't know you're probably going to try to pronounce it probably incorrectly.
Oh, 95% of the time. In
So,
fact, when
can
someone
you tell
says
us?
it correctly, I go, "Oh, you got it right," and I'm kind of like, "What's wrong with you?"
Okay, so before you get to all of the weird names that you've been called,
Sure,
do you know where your parents came up with your name?
I do.
Oh,
I
okay,
wish it
let's
had
hear
a cool story. But I mean, I could make up a cool story, but no, my mom taught a little girl in church who had the name, and so she thought that it was very pretty, and she then decided that she wanted to name me Krachel. And I do not know any other Krachels, with the one exception of a neighbor girl who was named after me. I don't know that she was named after me, but in a similar situation, because they heard the name, they thought it was pretty. And I think it's even her middle name, but she's the only other one. But real quick, I do have a funny story. When I was at college, I took a marketing class. This was actually a club class, and so I came in at the semester break. My friends had already been in for the first semester, and I joined in at the semester break. So the teacher asked those of us who were new to come up and introduce ourselves. Well, my friends we were the back row kids. So they're all up there on the back row and they're kind of making faces at me. And I'm really distracted. I'm staring at them and trying to keep a straight face. The girl right in front of me steps forward and says, "My name's Krachel." And I stop dead in my tracks. All of a sudden, I'm all ears. I think they all freeze. Well, but listen, it wasn't Krachel. It was Chris.
Okay.
Shell. And I think even spelled Chris. So Krachel. But you can imagine my head spun so quick.
Yeah.
Because I thought when it just rolled off the tongue, my name's Krachel. But Krachel.
Okay. So what's the weirdest name?
Oh. Well, I've heard them all. But I probably the most common one is Krachel.
Okay.
Krachel. Krach. Well, because I get those that actually come off of how it's spelled, but then my close friends make nicknames off the nickname, or a nickname off the wrong name. So Krach, Scratch, Shell, Shelly, Crackle was very popular in elementary school. I had a red pencil it was like a series of chocolate candy bars.
Like the candy bar.
So the Crackle candy bar, yeah. And actually, if you look closely, Crackle and Krachel are spelled the exact same way, with the exception of that second, in Crackle, the second K and the letter H.
Would be.
Yeah. And so a boy walked by and saw that and said, "Crackle, Crackle." And the rest is history.
You were Crackle.
I was Crackle. I changed schools in 5th grade, so it kind of went away, except one boy moved from that school to the new school with me. And he didn't ever say it, but we were playing dodgeball, which, by the way, I was really good at. So for anyone listening, or my husband who's very athletic, I just want him to know that there is one sport I'm good at, and that's dodgeball. So
at least something.
I mean, he's like good at everything. He actually said to me one night, he said, "I don't actually know what it's like to not make a team." And so he's one of those guys. But no, so we were playing dodgeball, and all of a sudden, this boy, I still remember, his name is Bart, and Bart yells, "Hey, Crackle!" And every head on the dodgeball court, like, what? Well, so it carried to the new school, and yeah.
That's funny. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a few more questions, but I'm going to start out and read this. And so I'm reading something. I'm going to be looking down, but several years ago, Krachel went through some pretty intense experiences in her life, and her friend wrote this. So I think this kind of sums up a lot of things that were happening. If it's okay with you, I'm going to read this.
Okay.
So Marcy wrote, "I sit at work, missing the familiar voice from the desk next door, missing my friend Krachel. Krachel is one of the most amazing women I have ever known, and I've known a few. Yesterday marked the last day of her mom's radiation treatment for breast cancer, and today her husband is having a transtibial," did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
"amputation to help improve his and his family's way of life. Did I also mention that her almost 4-year-old daughter is home in a leg brace for 4 more weeks recovering from hip surgery, and her 7-year-old has a gymnastics meet this Saturday. This amazing mom, wife, daughter, and friend has the weight of the world on her shoulders, but she never complains. She always keeps a beautiful smile on her face."
Yeah.
So, I have a few questions. I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself. You mentioned that you are a divorced widow who has found love again.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us, after going through those types of experiences and such devastation and loss, how do you find it in yourself to find joy and in these moments?
I think that when you hit rock bottom, you realize there's nowhere to go but up. And so I've had 3 husbands, and My first husband filed for divorce, and when he did, I felt blindsided. It came out of left field, and I quickly realized that if I was going to survive, I needed to focus on the positive. So that became my method of coping. I was hurting, I was grieving. I think that many who go through divorce can relate and understand that I just wanted to keep my family together. And by no means did we have a perfect marriage. And by no means was either party completely innocent. But I, at the end of the day, did not want to see that family be broken up. And so I begged and I pleaded and I fought with God, with my now ex-husband, to keep things together. And I had to go through a lot of learning about myself, a lot of personal growth, but I realized that in order to pull through, the only way I was going to survive was if I focused on the positive. And part of the positive is also only focusing on the things that I could control.
Yeah.
So that became a very big lesson, and I didn't know what was going to happen down the road in my life. I think in some ways it was like that was only the beginning, and that story that you shared was some tough times, but I quickly learned that there's good all around us. But if you're focused on the negative, you're going to walk right by it.
Yeah, I'm sure you really learned to like appreciate neighbors or friends or different people, just the little moments that can bring joy to your life.
We were served a lot during that time. When my friend Marcy wrote that, nobody knew. My family was keeping a secret because in addition to my daughter who was in a leg brace, my other daughter had just been diagnosed with epilepsy. She was having some grand mal seizures at home, and we were just in a waiting position, waiting to get in to see the doctor. And so we'd already had confirmation she'd been having the seizures at home, but until the doctor could see us, I didn't want to say anything publicly. And it happened to be that she wrote that in the middle of when that was all happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I did have my one daughter in a leg brace. As you mentioned, my husband was having his leg amputated, and so there was a lot of outward just struggles that our family was going through at that time. And so, I know that everybody has struggles, but for those people in particular who have chronic illness or chronic pain or invisible injuries, I know it's hard, mental illness especially, and that's a big one, easier to hide because it doesn't physically show. In our case, everybody knew there were things going on. There was no way to hide the fact that my daughter was in a brace or that my husband had just had his leg cut off. So we had many offers for help. And I just knew. So one thing that I learned early on is that, and you shared a very humble story with us last week about having the opportunity to serve someone. Mm-hmm. We could tell that it visibly struck you and you were emotional about it. We all deserve to have an opportunity to serve. We receive blessings when we do so. And so that's hard to be on the receiving end. It's hard to say, yes, I need help. It's hard to accept an offering. But the reality is, I know that it's also important to accept it because the person giving deserves to have the opportunity to serve.
Yeah.
So we're in this position where everyone knows we've got a lot of crap going on. I just knew you've got to be humble and say thank you and accept it. The reality at the time, I was the only one who was completely healthy. And the reality is I couldn't carry my whole family on my shoulders alone. But one of the things that happened that touched me the most was a neighbor lady who wanted to come and help and asked if there was anything we needed. And I said, actually, I need my lawn mowed. And it's not really big, but that would really help. We're going 100 different directions, and it's one more thing for me right now. I did mow the lawn, but it was one more thing at that time. So she came over. My mother-in-law was in town, but anyway, my mother-in-law was not mowing the lawn, and so But she was around. And when I came home, my mother-in-law said, she came in here. My friend's name is Holly. Holly came in here and she asked, do you have a pair of scissors that we can borrow, that she could borrow? And so my mother-in-law fumbled through the drawer and found them and handed them over. And a little while later, Holly came and returned the scissors. And my mother-in-law said to me, did you know she cut the entire trim along the fence with that pair of scissors?
Wow.
And I've never forgot that. That was the extent that someone was willing to go for me, to literally get down on her hands and knees with a pair of scissors and cut the entire fence line.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do it on my own at that time.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it is, I think you hit on some really important things there, that it's hard to accept help. But sometimes you have to swallow your own pride and accept help for yourself to grow and become a better person. I think that's what hopefully all of us, the majority of us, are just striving to be the very best version of ourselves that we can be.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's hear some lighthearted things. I want to know, because I like to have fun and be spunky, I want to know 3 random facts about you.
Okay.
Go.
Okay.
Let's hear. What are the 3 most random things about you that nobody out there?
So I grew up in the mountains of Utah, surrounded by ski resorts. I have never gone snow skiing.
Wow, you've never even tried.
No.
Wow. Okay.
No. I have done cross-country skiing.
Okay, it's a little different.
It's different. But
I was also raised in the
skied.
mountains, and I did downhill ski.
You did?
And I did snowboard, and I did not enjoy them. So I won't take you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, don't take me.
Next random fact.
Next random fact. I really like to go geocaching.
Yes, you do.
It's kind of my secret guilty pleasure. And I'm not a big geocacher. I haven't. The person who taught me how to geocache was a legitimate geocacher. He had caught, for those of you who are not familiar with geocaching, there are little treasures hidden in the world all around us, literally right out your door. There's probably a geocache hiding, and all of those people who come and loiter on your corner, you think that they're loitering, but they're actually looking for that geocache that's hiding. So that's kind of sums it up. That's the fun of the game, is that these things are hidden in plain sight, but without having the proper technology to know where they are, you literally would never know these caches exist.
Yeah.
So anyway, this guy who taught me at the time had found over 15,000 geocaches.
Wow.
He plans his summer vacations around where he's going to go geocaching.
Wow.
And anyway, he and his family will go out and they'll find like 10 caches a day, but over the course of a week, that means they find 70 geocaches. I've found like 70 in my entire career. So I think it's fun. I feel like I know a lot. I feel like I'm a geocaching expert because I was taught by one of the best, and he told me everything. but I don't know a lot, but I really do love the game.
You know what? You actually told me about geocaching a few years ago. And we took our kids and we did go geocaching, and it's not necessarily our thing. Like, I'll be surprised if we ever do it again. But it's really is a cool thing if you've never done it, especially if you just need to get outside and do something, and you don't have to be a child. You know, there are a lot of adults that do it. But it's kind of like the ultimate treasure hunt. Even the caches, some of them are amazing and some of them are like, But it's kind of just the fun. Yeah. It's just getting outside and just being active.
And it's been a really popular activity. I do know from some of the communities I've followed that it's been really popular during the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah.
It's a way that people can get out into the great outdoors and kind of do something that takes them away from the crowds.
Yeah.
But get out of the house with a purpose in mind. Have a place to go, something to do. So.
And it's free, right? Anybody
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
there's a
it's
website
something
where you
that-
can go create a profile, sign up, and then start cashing.
That's awesome. Okay, one more.
Okay.
One
Third
more random fact.
about me. Gosh, I don't know if I can admit this one publicly, but
Please tell me it's about your baby blanket.
oh,
Sorry. Okay, erase that part. What random fact are you going to tell?
because I come from a long line of quilters, when I was born, I received a baby blanket. And I can't believe you're making me admit this on a podcast. So I loved my blanket so much that I traveled with it as a child everywhere I went. And naturally, I loved my blanket. I didn't have a name for it. I wasn't a weird kid. But
Hey, it's not weird. Maybe it's just unalike.
I was unlike many others because every day I got a little bit older, but I still loved my blanket. So much so that when I married my first husband, the blanket went with me on my honeymoon. I was 24 years old, so I slept with it for about 24 years. After, when I did marry him and moving forward, had someone to share a bed with, I found I no longer needed it. So it's in the cedar chest now.
Okay, so what was the other random fact you were going to tell before I asked about the baby blanket?
She tricked me. Okay. I just hope no police officers are watching right now. I have a little bit of a lead foot, so I'm known in my family for getting pulled over often, but I'm very proud of the fact that my pulled over rate to ticket rate, the ratio is like this.
Wow.
I am really good at getting out of tickets.
Very impressive. The last time I was pulled over, I'm pretty sure I was about 18.
Oh.
So it's probably been 20 plus years.
I can give you some tips.
I'll just keep driving slow. It's fine. It's fine.
Can I just say, it's been really weird this year. It's weird for all of us, but I think what's weird for me is, I didn't realize till this happened, I mark a lot of events in my life, milestones around what's going on with the kids in school.
Mm-hmm.
So when everything shut down in March and all of a sudden spring break didn't happen, mentally, we moved past March and past April and into May, and now we're talking about graduation. Mentally, I'm still back in March because spring break hasn't happened.
Yes.
I didn't realize my life revolved so much around that. And then graduations, and I just told you that I didn't go to our high schools, but that was the next thing. I missed graduation, so I'm kind of like, well, the kids didn't have their end of school parties or anything, so I'm kind of still waiting for school to end. And obviously, now we're talking about school restarting. I just want to say, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it will help my brain fast forward and accept that we're now approaching
the end of
August.
Summer.
Yeah.
Yes, I do have to completely agree with that. And maybe in a way, thank my children for instilling some type of a schedule into my life, because and maybe for me it wasn't as much because I've always worked from home or for a long time. And now you work from home and realize when there's no strict go to work schedule or even put the kids on the bus or whatever, it's really weird to feel like there's no rules or there's nowhere to be, no obligations at that moment, or
no, yeah,
it's very different.
Not that we don't have responsibilities, because we still do. We're both working.
We still work.
But it did feel like a lot of responsibilities went away. For a while, I wasn't a soccer mom because all the extracurricular activities were canceled. When all of the restaurants and when we were all kind of on shutdown, it's like, and I know across the country we weren't leaving houses. It kind of felt like, I think we all talk a lot about it feeling like Groundhog Day. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to school starting back. In my neighborhood, in my town, they're talking about that they are going to have kids go to school, and we're excited about that.
Yes, we're still waiting to hear our plans, but they will be doing some type of school in a few months. It's going, talking about school shopping and different things like that. It's even kind of different this year to think about that, but we're trying our hardest to make it as normal for our kids. Obviously, it's something that's changed their lives and will forever impact their lives, the things that have happened this year, but they still deserve a childhood. So our focus in my home has been to still try to make our kids have as normal of a life as they can.
Yeah, I like that.
So,
I like that.
yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for being here with us again today. This concludes episode 2 of the Unalike podcast. Be sure to check us out on social media, on our individual pages, as well as the Unalike podcast. And leave a comment. Let us know what kind of stories you would like to hear from us. Of course, we're always here to tell the happy stories and to look for the good. We'll see you.